Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern Vlog series on Resha Sentai ToQger. Today we will cover Station 14, Lost Cop, Great Detective. Now, this is a very hard episode to go ahead and talk about. First of all, it's a filler episode, it's nonsensical, there are a lot of plot holes that we're going to get into, and frankly, it's a very uncomfortable episode, and it's really hard to go ahead and talk about, but I'm going to do my best to explain what that is. But let's first talk about the episode in general. So basically the ToQger come to a new city where they're taking a break, and the ToQger head out, only to be arrested, falsely I might add, by a police officer who believes that they are responsible for a rash of burglaries which have been taken or which have been committed by a shadow liner. So basically the episode is about Hikari, who is really big on detective and mystery stuff, trying to clear their names and find out who actually went ahead and committed these robberies. And it seems like a pretty straightforward and simple plot, but when you kind of dig a little bit deeper into it is when we really have some problems with it. But again, let's talk about the more unusual things about this episode that really just don't make a lot of sense when you sit and think about it. First of all, there's no villain analysis this episode because there's nothing really going on with the villains that we didn't already know. It seems like a scene was just shoehorned in there because, well, we got to talk about the villains and what's going on there. But this episode, they find the police Resha. Now, the weird thing about it, so the villain is like a vacuum cleaner elephant thing, is what it is. And there's a stockpile of all shiny things that he's been collecting, because he's been trying to collect things for Greta to wear during the wedding, because, of course, Zet likes shiny things. That's about the only interesting thing about the villains that we have, is that we find out that Madam is actually, you know, encouraging the Emperor's love of shiny things. Anyway, but amongst the treasure trove of stolen goods is the police Resha, the little thing that they actually put on their morphers and to call it. Now, the first thing that's odd about this is that we've established that every support Resha that they have discovered, that little component has been inside of the Resha, that they will find a way to get into it, find the Resha sitting at the control panel, and activate it that way. What we also find out later in the episode is the police Resha is under the police station in a non-secure area. It looks like it's in the parking garage, connected to a railroad track. So that first tells me that the shadow creature had to go under the police station, break inside the police Resha, and steal only that one component and then get out. I don't get that. Unless you're trying to tell me that the component was somewhere else, and in that case, he had only been stealing things from stores and banks and locations like that. So you're trying to tell me that the component was located at a bank or was for sale retail somewhere? Not to mention, it's not even shiny, which was his whole purpose, is to find shiny objects. So it makes no sense that he got a hold of it in the first place. And second, the police Resha is under the police station, and the police don't know anything about it? I mean, again, it's under the station, in the parking garage, under a bunch of spotlights, with a rail track connected to it. So, you tell me the police just never noticed, or they know that it's down there and they just leave it? That makes absolutely no sense. I don't get what the police Resha is doing there, because, okay, yes, it is invisible, but why would there be a railroad track under the police station? And again, even if they didn't see it, then how did the shadow Resha, the shadow monster, actually see the Resha to break into it, to steal it? Again, makes no sense whatsoever. I don't particularly understand what's going on in regards to police Resha. Again, they're trying to tie the episode to the police to have that thematic connection, and they didn't really think this through. The next kind of big thing to talk about this episode is it's a Hikari episode, but the thing is we don't actually learn anything about his character other than he likes reading detective novels. And there's this little montage of him, going out finding clues and questioning witnesses to help prove the innocence of the other four ToQger. 1. Hikari at this point does not know that they have been arrested for any particular crime. He knows they've been arrested because Conductor, Ticket, and Wagon have all seen that, and obviously they told him. But they didn't say what he was accused of, what they were accused of. And he goes out of this town to question people, but we don't know what he's asking. He even roughs a guy up. What are you asking them exactly that leads you to believe what's happening? And the only way he's able to actually piece together is he fights the shadow monster and discovers his evil plan. So everything he did prior to that really doesn't connect. And yes, I know he has the booklet, he's been writing the notes. I'm sure if my Japanese was better, I could translate exactly what he wrote in there. But the episode doesn't indicate that that actually helped at all. That he was able to find out what happened after fighting the monster in the first place. And the monster pretty much told me, I'm stealing shiny things. So that doesn't make much sense. And again, it's supposed to parody some sort of Japanese crime drama with the conductor acting like a police chief and all that. The lighting was really good on a couple of scenes, and if I actually watched Japanese police dramas, it may have been funny to me, but I didn't find it funny at all. But then even Hikari actually shows up when he deduces everything. He dresses up like Sherlock Holmes, which, as far as I know, Sherlock Holmes is not a Japanese crime drama, so I don't know what the connection is. They're just throwing stuff at the wall here, which doesn't make much sense. Let's talk about the ToQger and the fact that they've been arrested for a crime they did not commit. Again, I want to get more in depth in that here in a second, but look at this from their point of view. They've been arrested, thrown in jail, and they're worried about going to prison forever for, again, being innocent of a crime. Now, the whole thing is about this dirty cop that puts them in there and stuff, but they assume that because they've been arrested, they're going to go to trial and that they're going to be found guilty with absolutely no evidence. But what I can't help but wonder is, why did they not go to the police in the first place when they couldn't identify who they are? And let me go over this. So, obviously when they get arrested, they have to be photoed, they have to be fingerprinted, they have to be ID'd, you have to know who it is that you're holding, at least in American court. Now, if there's a difference in Japanese system of jurisprudence that I am not aware of, please let me know. But I would assume that they would have been brought in, fingerprinted, ID'd, so we know, oh, this is who we're holding here. Otherwise, we're just holding 4 random people who we don't have their IDs to. And then they want to go to court on this. So can you actually go to court without identifying the 4 people that you've actually arrested and are being accused of a particular crime? I mean, that makes no sense. And actually, wouldn't the ToQger want to be identified here? Wouldn't they want to find out? Because don't you think that maybe, let's say one of the ToQger, before they lost their memories, they were a criminal. Well, their fingerprints would be on file. There'd be a wanted poster or something. That would at least help them identify who they are. And if it's not even that, what if they are a missing child or a missing person? You think the police would have something on record to say, here are all the missing people that they're going around here. Granted, it does say that their town is missing, but you would think at some point somebody would have to file, hey, these guys are, missing, my cousin lives in this town, the town's completely disappeared from the map. What the heck is going on? I find it odd that ToQger never once occurs to them to try to identify themselves while being held captive by authorities, or from the very first episode to even go to the authorities in the first place to maybe assume that they might be able to go ahead and help them because, well, for the most part, police are supposed to go ahead and help us. And this episode doesn't deal with that. It doesn't even cover that particular idea, that they could use the police to their advantage. I mean, wouldn't it have been a great ending if at the end the detective actually helped them out in this situation and could identify them and say, oh yes, you are these guys and your town was here. But no, that would be practical and we can't do practical things within the show. So, yeah, so that's all that. But let's get to the elephant in the room and why I find this episode really bothersome a little bit disturbing and very uncomfortable to go ahead and watch. Now, first of all, I will point out this is not intentional by them. I get that, given the release date and, of course, at the time that I have viewed and everything that's happened in between. But let's point out a couple things. The ToQger arrive in a new town. A police detective falsely accuses them based on a hunch, arrests them, is called a dirty cop, and at the end gets away with false arrests, basically. Given the way America has had issues with cops in the last several months, half a year in this country, it's very hard to go ahead and watch because the whole premise is based off of a dirty cop who gets away at the end. Yes, the detective in this who arrests the ToQger with no evidence whatsoever, imprisons them, and is rewarded by the rest of his department saying congratulations, ends up actually finding all the stolen goods at the end and does not get punished by anyone. So what's the moral here? Seriously, what's the moral? That dirty cops get away? Now again, this is obviously some sort of homage to Japanese crime dramas and all that, and I'm sure the dynamic between police officers and police officers in Japan and America are much different than what we have going on. Frankly, when I was over there, the police officers were a tremendous help and much nicer than any cop I've ever met in this country. But what are they trying to go ahead and say to the children? Because again, let's go back to what everybody says. It's a kid's show. For both Power Rangers and Super Sentai, it's a kid's show. What is the message you're trying to tell children? That there are dirty cops out there, and even though there are dirty cops, they're not going to go ahead and get punished? Is that what you're trying to go ahead and say to them? Everything I ever watched as a child always said the cops were there to go ahead and help you. Sometimes they were misguided, sometimes they were buffoons and all that, but they were supposed to go ahead and help you. Only recently has that changed, I believe, in children's media. And Super Sentai, for some reason, seems to take the stand that there are bad cops out there, but that they're goofy as well. Because this guy's play with a comedic edge to him. And I just don't get that. It's really perplexing to me. I don't know what the message is they're trying to send to the Japanese youth about children, or to children about police officers. Because, again, it's not a good message, I think, to, send out the message about dirty cops like that. Maybe if it was an older audience, I could see it teenagers, college age, something like that. But if it's really set to like 6, 7, 8-year-olds and all that, I don't think that's necessarily a good message to send. And again, they play him as a buffoon the whole time, because he's wrong and all that. But he never gets called out. He never gets caught. So again, are you trying to tell him that you can get away with this and not get caught and everything will work out in the end? I don't get that. It's really bothersome. And I think what really was bad for the episode, and again, this is my interpretation, this is what I read into it after seeing this. The Hikari and Wright in the Tokyo police Megazord say, we're arresting you, handcuff the guy, and shoot him to death. And the Shadow says, this is not an arrest, to which the girls are like, no, it's not an arrest, but go with it. I could not help but think of the Michael Brown and the Eric Gardner situation here. What was going on in those situations? They were arresting these guys, and they ended up shooting them or choking them, ended up killing them. So again, I know this wasn't their intention, but it's really hard to watch this episode now that history is played out, or is still playing out, honestly, and not see that there is this sense of police brutality that is being depicted in this children's television show. That's what it comes down to. That's honestly what I think, is that they are showing the Rangers arresting somebody with their handcuffs and killing him, and the guy complaining that this is not an arrest, this is wrong. Again, this happened before all the other situations that have happened with Gardner and Brown. But I can't help but read that in there now. Am I wrong in this? Again, I know that's not their intention. But did anybody else get that feeling when they saw this episode? That's seriously what I got. And that's why I think this is very uncomfortable. Because not only is this showing that the police officer is corrupt, he wins in the end and never gets punished, But in a way, the Rangers themselves are somewhat corrupted. And what do I mean by that? Because they said they're going to arrest him, but they end up killing him. So, I mean, Rangers got to be good at their word, right? If they're going to arrest the guy. Bring him to justice. But what you did is kill him, which in my book is not justice. This is a no-form justice, okay? So, for that reason, I find this episode very disturbing, very upsetting. If they do adapt it to Power Rangers somewhere down the line, I really hope that they think long and hard about how they're going to adapt this story, how they're going to go ahead and change it to where it's something a little bit more positive, something a little less, you know, what's going on, a little less topical, I guess. Then again, they may skip it for ninjas in the beginning, so who knows if it'll even get adapted. The point of the matter is, it's a very awkward episode. I'm not saying it's a bad episode just because of that. It's a bad episode because they didn't think things out, is what it is. But the horrible implications of this episode cannot be overlooked, and I think a lot of people need to kind of sit back and kind of realize that. Hopefully this isn't something that's going to reoccur within ToQger if they bring up the police again. I don't know. But again, it's just really bothersome to see this and really colored my view of the episode. Because for one, I just thought it was a dumb episode, but then when you get to the detective and this ending scene, it's not very good. So I think I've said my piece on that. There isn't anything else for me to go ahead and talk about. So next time, we will go to Station 15 and see if we can do better. Otherwise, you all have yourself a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.